information. As we have seen, there was a general talk for the need of change in the Roman Catholic Church. From different quarters, this talk has come. Basically, even those ardent supporters of the Roman Catholic Church realized that there was something wrong, some abuses there. The clergy were not behaving as they ought to behave. Even the Pope was too luxurious, living a very comfortable, too comfortable life. Nothing in common with Peter or Jesus Christ and the Pope. So these things people begin to realize. At this time, a Reformation movement started in Netherlands and Germany around 1350. This movement is called the Brethren of the Common Life. The Brethren of the Common Life. Very interesting, that name itself suggests that these people considered everybody equal, Brethren of the Common Life. It was not something necessarily started by the clergy, but something ordinary people. This was started by a man called Gerhard Grote. Gerhard Grote or Grote, G-R-O-T, Gerhard Grote. He preached to a large number of crowds and a great revival started. He wanted to reform the church. The abuses of the clergy has to be corrected. The church has become too formal, too authoritative, too powerful, and leadership was too carnal, no spiritual value. So, Gerhard Grote started this movement, the Brethren of the Common Life, and large crowds were attracted. They were strong educators, well-educated people, and they believed that education must be given to all people. So they recommended education. They aimed to reform the church through education. They didn't just want to go and attack the church left and right, but they wanted to take people and educate them, and in the process of education they wanted to show them where the mistake was. Actually, it was a better approach. It's a better approach. Because if you educate people, change will come. Many of the abuses are there because people are not educated. Of course, the Pope and few others are educated, maybe, but they have the abuse because power corrupts. Power is in the hand. But if ordinary people are given education, they naturally will see where the church has gone wrong. So they emphasize education. Martin Luther attended one of their schools. He is a product of this school. Yes. He attended one of their schools in Magdeburg. Magdeburg, M-A-G-D-E-B-U-R-G, Magdeburg. He attended only for a year, but that year was very important because, he got education in many areas. There are three other great students who have all gone through this system. They are John of Wessel. You may have heard of him. Erasmus, most everybody knows about Erasmus, and Thomas A. Kempis. Imitation of Christ, a famous classic devotional work. These three great men all came from this school. John of Wessel was a great thinker and a scholar of his time. From 1445 to 1446, he was professor of Erfurt University in Germany. It was from this school Martin Luther received his master's degree. 49 years later. Many called John of Wessel the light of the world. He attacked indulgences. He taught clearly the justification by faith alone. He said, he who thinks to be justified through his own work does not know what it is to be saved. He also taught that only the elect are saved by grace. He said, whom God wishes to save, he would save by giving him grace. Even if all the priests would, damn and excommunicate him. Some of these people, understood the truth, They were bold to say it. They have a nice way of saying it. You cannot improve on it. Yes, he did not accept Roman Catholic doctrine of transubstantiation, that the blood becomes the body and, the wine becomes the blood. Luther said to Vassal that if he would have read of his works, then it would sound that he was influenced by him. But Luther never actually read that John Wessel's writings. Roman Catholic Church did not approve his teaching. He was charged of heresy and tried. However, Wessel recanted. That's the bad part. Even though they recanted, they sent him to prison where he died in October 1489. So this man was a great man, I wonder why he recanted. Of course, some great people don't have the courage. It's a part of our personality. Yes. Peter was a fearful man. Why did he deny the Lord? You think he didn't love the Lord? Oh, he loved the Lord. Really. Then why did he deny? That was a character flaw in his personality. He was always a man of fear. See, when people from Jerusalem came to Antioch, what did he do? How much the Lord has to force him to go to Cornelius' house, the vision and all that. Fear. So, Peter was a great man of God, great apostle, but he was a man of fear. Fear was the main ingredient in the personality of Peter. Paul's personality was the opposite, fear. He had fear, yes, but not this kind of fear. He was bold. He was a warring horse, So this element is there in different people, So we cannot always blame, So I think John of Wessel, if he recanted at the end, because he was afraid he was going to be burned on stake, because he has already seen John Hus, John Wycliffe and all these people getting burning, and all the lowlards, hundreds of thousands of them got burned down, and he probably thought, what good if I also get burned down. So he recanted. But they knew that, he believes what he believes. So sent him to prison. The most famous pupil of this Brethren movement, or the Brethren of the Common Life movement, was Erasmus. What is Erasmus known for? Erasmus was one of the last scholastics. Writings, yes. But what was his greatest contribution to Christendom? The Greek Bible. There was no Greek text, There were only manuscripts. Erasmus was the first one to study those manuscripts and bring out a text out of all those manuscripts called Erasmus text. Luther read this text and translated into German. So it was basically the first authoritative Greek Bible, and Erasmus Bible. It's not necessarily the best, but it's a satisfactory translation.
So and he has access to this one? That might be with the Catholic Church.
Yes, the Catholic Church has, Rome has a large library. Oh, it's loaded with manuscripts and all those things. Yes. Anybody who wanted to go and study, they can, but they cannot take out anything from there. They cannot make any copies there. You can only read and put it back. Because copying the Bible or anything was a kind of a heresy, So there were scholars who will go in. There was one man, his name I have forgotten, but he loved the word, so he will go every morning into the library. He will memorize one page, sitting there, come home and copy it. Next day he will go, so that way he copied the whole Bible. You think of how much people love the word. We don't have time to take quiet time, right? We are so busy. This man has copied the whole Bible, memorized the whole Bible. New Testament, talking about the New Testament, the Greek Bible. He has memorized the whole and copied it. So people have done that. They love the word. They were willing to die for it. Because if he is caught copying it, he definitely will be sent into jail for the rest of his life. You know?
Uncle, what was the kind of education given to?
You can get an MA, you can get a degree in theology.
So only
There were
the
seminaries and all that.
only the language.
The language, you can go and get an MA in classical Greek, Hebrew. These great universities were all teaching. Yes, they were professors. Language was taught. Luther had an MA in I don't know what subject it was, but he had an MA degree. Then later he got theology. Then the university conferred upon him a doctorate, later honorary doctorate. He was a very learned man. He was a professor in the Wittenberg University. You know, he was no ordinary man. He was a very learned man. So these people had opportunity for learning. Of course, those days the library was not as big as the libraries today at some universities. Some of them have millions of copies today. With all these modern, you know, what they call them, not in the book form, but in the other form and all, you have plenty. But those days also they had. So Erasmus was a great man. Somebody said Erasmus laid the eggs, Luther has them. I call Erasmus the prodigal father of the Reformation. Yes, he was, because, he knew all about the abuses of the church and he knew all about it. And Luther personally talked with Erasmus about these things. And Erasmus' answer was, slow down, Luther, slow down. Time has not come. Don't hurry. So Erasmus died as a member of the church, from the Catholic Church. He didn't have a part in the Reformation. Yet he had a part because of his writings and this one. So Erasmus' great contribution for Reformation was the New Testament Greek text he made. Luther used it to study the Bible and also to translate it into the German language. So Erasmus was a great man. He has done some, Erasmus was the first one in the history of the church to recommend divorce and remarriage.
Devotion?
Divorce and remarriage. The Erasmus passed interpretation of the exception clause. That's where it all hangs. Even now everybody calls that. So I could say that that's a disservice he has done to the Christian church. It's a wrong interpretation. Great men sometimes do great mistakes. Yes. Another man who was deeply influenced by the spirit of this great movement of the Brethren of the Common Life was Thomas A. Kempis. You all have read his Imitation of Christ, Imitation of Christ, a famous classical work of devotion. This book is the front line of devotional literature even to this day. Any bookstore will carry Thomas A. Kempis, Imitation of Christ. This book advises men to read the Bible and flee worldly vanities. That is the main substance. Believers have to read, people have to read the Bible and run away from the vanities of life. So he was a godly man. Generally thought that he is a believer. Erasmus may have been a believer. It's very much possible. There were many people, even this time, who were believers. And now for over 300 years, the church has been in great turmoil. The Albigenses, the Waldenses, the Wycliffe, the Lollards, the John Huss, the Hussites, Dominicans, Franciscans, they all were contributing, they were all creating some disturbances in the church, but all have tried to reform the church. Heretics were burned and their lands were devastated, their books were burnt. In the first half of the 15th century, 3 great councils were held. The Turks conquered the Constantinople and the Eastern Roman Empire fell to Turks. The great Sophia church was converted to a mosque. Charlemagne stopped the Muslims' advancement, but later of course, the Eastern Empire became weak and the Turks came and conquered it. The cross on the dome of the church was replaced by a crescent. The Orthodox Church, Greek Orthodox Church, was passed under the yoke of the false prophet Muhammad. Papacy was paganized by Renaissance in the 15th century. The church has gone through much change. From Pentecost to Reformation, the church has totally changed. Church is ruled by a hierarchy not known in apostolic days. Popes, bishops, priests, they all assumed an office which the Bible does not, say anything about. The church under Pope assumed the power and the right to change even the doctrines. The doctrine of purgatory, transubstantiation, indulgences, and the doctrine of the Pope as a continuation of the apostolic office of Peter, etc., are totally unbiblical, and and they are actually heresy. But yet, the church was believing heresy, and those who were teaching the true doctrine from the Bible were branded heretics and were burned. Is that strange? That is strange. The true doctrine became heresy, and all the false doctrines are branded the doctrine of the church. Now the men of Renaissance or the scholastics searched the writings of the fathers. They found out that they did not know anything about the new doctrines that Roman Catholic Church was teaching. They also began to read the New Testament in original language and found that these strange teachings of the Roman Catholic Church are not in the Bible. Very soon, great disapproval of many things the church teach came under attack. The church began to carry the sword to behead those who opposed the church. Very soon, Reformation broke out under Martin Luther. Political, intellectual, social climate in Europe cried for a change. Luther entered the scene the right time. Yes. The time was right for Luther to come in. They were looking for a savior actually. Because, the abuses were everywhere. Too many heads were cut off by the Roman Catholic Church. The good men who preached the gospel, who taught the Bible, they were all branded heretics and they were all burned on stakes. Somebody has to come forward and, consolidate the movement. And so we have the church in the Reformation period. Until now, the Reformation was going on, but not on a large scale, here and there. They were only plowing down. You can say that the seed is, they have plowed down and some seed was sown, but not everywhere. So Martin Luther came. He shook the church. The church is shaken. The foundations of the church were shaken. October 31, 1517 is the date to be remembered. October 31, 1517. Yes. And Luther shook the church, and it was really shaken. In the scale, it was a 7-point Richter scale. It was a 7-point, or 8-point, earthquake. It was a church quake. Yes, it really did. A new era is opened. The Reformation. It came in the fullness of time, as one brother said. It came in the fullness of time. It did not come all at once in a day. For many decades, things were happening in Roman Catholic Church. Luther is a man who ignited the gunpowder already dry and ready. Luther basically did that. He ignited it, and the explosion came. Yes. The Roman Catholic Church emphasized the sacraments. Its system was sacramentarian salvation. That is basically the Roman Catholic Church system is sacramentarian salvation. Salvation through sacraments. It was taught by the Roman Catholic Church that man can be saved by faith, but faith is derived through the sacraments. It is not by the preaching of the Word of God, it is not by believing, but it is by receiving. You receive Christ when you take the hostie, the bread. That's how. You receive the Holy Spirit when you have this styly level. And so, it's everything, but through sacraments you get everything. When you have the child baptism, that's when your original sin is wiped away and you are basically regenerated. Your name is written in the book of life in the local Roman Catholic Church. It doesn't go up very much. So there are 7 sacraments. How many sacraments a person can have? Only 6. If you marry, you cannot have priesthood. If you take for priesthood, you cannot marry. So there are 7 sacraments. Marriage is one of them, but priesthood is one. You cannot have both. Of course, you can have both. According to the Roman Catholic Church doctrine, if I want to become a Roman Catholic priest, I can. Or that I have to join there, they will annul my marriage. They will say, Grace and I are not married according to the law of the church. Therefore, that marriage is not valid. I only lived in sin with her. Then I can go to the seminary and get priesthood. So I have enjoyed the family life for so many years. Now I can enjoy the other thing. What fool will go for that? You are already enjoying the best of it, So you don't want to go. So out of the 7 sacraments, 4 sacraments have special relevance to salvation. They are baptism, Eucharist, penance, and extreme unction, or they call it the anointment of the sick. These are the 4 sacraments that have application for salvation. The baptism takes away your, inherited sin. Eucharist, you receive Christ. Penance, you get forgiveness. And the extreme unction or anointment of the sick, then all the sins you have committed until that moment of death, it's forgiven. Still you have to go purgatory. That's what I can understand. All my sins were, suppose last moment, I confess and then I am given this, extreme unction, and that same moment I died, what sin I have? Still I have to go zero sin. Even the zero sin I have to go through. I will have to be there only for a few days, I guess, but still I have to go there. You have to visit that place. Heaven will allow only people with the smell of fire. Isn't that strange? That's strange, it is. In Luther's day, the sacrament of penance occupied an important place in religious life. Penance involved the priestly absolution of the sinner from eternal punishment. It involved 3 acts by the penitent sinner. First, contrition, that is sincere feeling of sorrow for the sins he has done. So you have to go before the priest and confess your sin. If possible, you can shed a couple of drops of tears. Even if it's glycerin, no problem. At least it must be there. Then you confession to the priest, Yes. So you kneel down there with the tears, and then priest asks you, what have you done? Then you list them, your sins. Then satisfaction. The priest will tell you what to do. Hold the cross and watch the Eucharist, or roll 7 times around the church, whatever is, he will prescribe some act of satisfaction. Sometimes it may be maybe feeding the poor, maybe doing some social service, that sort of thing. Then the priest will pronounce absolution. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, I forgive you your sins. So you come out. What I call, you fill your basket 6 days, empty it in the church, bring out this empty basket to fill again. Because the basket is full, it cannot contain any more sin. So you have a place to empty it. It does not change man. It only unloads what is loaded. What a system it is. It's not a good system. The priest would now decide what satisfaction is required. It is usually something the penitent sinner would do. Sometimes it is saying the Lord's Prayer 100 times. Sometimes a pilgrimage at a certain place, or doing alms to poor people. Sometimes it is causing self-pain, fast for 5 days. Don't talk to anybody. Mindavradam, the vow of silence.
That
Don't
was only Hindus.
Hmm?
I thought it's only Hindus who did
Oh
that.
no. It's not only for Hindus. The nuns, for example, those who go for nunnery, every year they have certain days you cannot speak to anybody. For a whole week, something absolute silence. If you violate it, it will be more punished. So they all practice it. And then there are days you have to talk. You have to talk and talk and talk and talk or non-stop. You have to talk and talk and talk and all that thing, But it's very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. After all this, you become a nun. Isn't that sad?
N-O-N-E.
Well, it sounded like it, but it's spelled differently, yes. Indulgences. As time progressed, Luther found out that the church permitted the penitent to purchase penalty or satisfaction by paying money. So if you are a rich person, you can just sin and then buy forgiveness. Isn't that nice? Either for your own past sins or someone else's sin. Even you can buy for the sins you are going to commit. You can say that I wanted to do tomorrow some sin. These are the sins I wanted to do. Can I buy in advance of forgiveness? So that I can commit it with peace of mind. What an abusive system. These indulgences were called papal tickets to heaven. It will contain a statement about penalty, payment and forgiveness. Some of the history book you can see samples of this one. They are written in Latin, but basically they said this is the certificate that so and so, has paid such and such amount and purchased, the forgiveness or the virtue, for the sins he has committed. So his purgatory is reduced by 500 years. Yeah, that's what it says. More money you can have even for 50,000 years. If your sins are very bad, it's always better to buy some extra, because you don't know. You just have to go through. Just walk through it. Otherwise, you will be there. So the purchase of granting indulgences was based on the Catholic doctrine of works of supererogation. Works of supererogation were works done beyond the demands of the law. The law demands you to do certain things. If you go beyond and do it, these works earn a reward. Christ, by his life of perfect holiness, has done more than was necessary by a very large amount. So that large amount of good works Christ has done is put in an account. Then every saint who has done extra, they all go to that same account. So in that account there is plenty of points of merit. It is deposited with the church. The Pope is having the authority to dispense it. So you can go and say, Most Holy Father, I like to buy some of those merits. So this is the money. Kindly, give me. So Pope is very happy because, it is so full there, so some has to be empty, and then Pope will get the money. So this is a good arrangement, I guess, The church gets money, the person gets the feeling that his sins are forgiven, and the heaven box is a little bit empty, it's overflowing, and so. I don't know who thought about it, who found it out. Yes. The saints had, the Roman Catholics taught that the gospel not only imposes commandments upon man, but that it also comes to us with counsels of perfection. This theory is based upon the rich young ruler. He had obeyed every law. He said, I have done all of them. What did the Lord say? Go sell all you have and give to the poor, that you may have riches in heaven. See? So he had enough to go heaven. That he has done. So if he had sold, then that extra merit would be kept there. That's the extra merit you are buying. So it is based upon that story in Matthew 19:21. The Roman Catholic Church teaches that the young ruler could have performed a work of supererogation and would have performed a work of earning this merit. All the work of supererogation of saints are added to the fund Jesus had opened. So he has opened a savings account. You can contribute some. This fund of merit earned by the supererogation earned by saints are at the disposal of the Pope as the vicar of the Christ Church. People could buy the merit for whatever price the Pope will decide. Interestingly, from time to time he will increase. There's inflation and all those things. So, you could buy 2 years worth of, freedom from the purgatory for $100, but now it's $1,000. Because of the inflation, everything will, it costs more now. Yes. So this arrangement worked great for both the church and the penitent. They found it is easier to buy an indulgence than to undergo penalties. And they preferred paying a sum of money for the soul of the dear ones. The system pleased the church. The sale of indulgences was a great source of income. It kept money flowing to the church. When it was found out that the Roman church needed money to be flowing to its coffers, they would issue more and more indulgences. They will print more and more, Every pope has the right to issue indulgences. The Roman Catholics raised the price of the indulgences. Sometime more and more popes would issue new indulgences. As the indulgences business grew, abuses also increased. Definitely. Tetzel, this is a name, a Dominican friar. He was a high-pitched salesman in this indulgences. He was selling indulgences in Germany. He used flattery and cunningness for sale. He will stand on a high, stool and he will tell people, the moment you hear your money drop in the box, the soul of your mother will jump out of purgatory. Isn't that great? Yes, the moment you hear the noise of the money, dropping in the box, the soul of your mother will jump out of purgatory. So why are you keeping your money? Bring it, buy it. That's what. So people were bringing in money, for my mother 50, for my dad 50, for my uncle 500. I had a bad uncle maybe for 10,000. Yeah. Even now also they do it, kind of, and they don't. There were 2 brothers. They both were really rowdies. And one died, of his evils. And the older brother died. The younger brother had a desire that, at the funeral, the priest should say a good word about this man. So he went into the priest and said that, my brother was real bad and but I want you to say in the message that this man was a good man. For saying that, I'm going to give you 5,000 rupees. The priest thought, I'll say it. So he took the 5,000 rupees. So, the funeral service came, he promised. So he spoke about the younger brother. The younger brother is so bad, so nasty, so dirty, but the older man was better than the... Comparing to the younger man, this man was a good man. So they have this sort of things even now. You can pay your priest, they will say some good things. Yes, purgatory is, at least for the time being, is is spared. So Tetzel was a high volume salesman, and he went out into all Germany selling these things. Yes, it was Tetzel's conduct that made Luther to speak against indulgences. Actually, Reformation started because of this Tetzel. Luther was already upset with many things, but Tetzel kind of cornered him. And now coming to we'll talk more about that one after a few minutes. We say a few things about Luther. Luther was born in Eisleben, Germany on November 10, 1483. His parents were pious people. His father was interested in the mining industry. He made every effort by hard working and by hard saving to educate Martin Luther. His father wanted Martin Luther to be a lawyer. That was his desire. So Martin, after receiving his elementary and high school education, went into the college in Erfurt. From the University of Erfurt, he obtained a master's degree in 1505. His father was very happy on this occasion. In accordance to the wishes of his father, Martin moved to the law school in the same university. Half a year Martin finished, Martin stopped the legal studies and he enrolled in a monastery to become a monk. That made his father so angry. His father was an outright choleric and a man of determination. He got after Luther and they had problems after problems and arguments after arguments. And Martin inherited the same character from his father. So you can just imagine. Yes. So Martin said, what I decided, I decided. I'm going to be a monk. He wanted Luther, his father wanted Luther to be a lawyer, but Martin was just like his father, a very strong-willed person. In spite of his father's anger and fury, Martin persisted in his way. After 6 months, Martin took the vow. Martin is a monk now. He fully believed at this time that for the rest of his life he will be a monk. But that was changed. Luther now turned to the study of theology. In 1507, Luther was ordained a priest. The following year, he was appointed tutor in the Wittenberg University. While there, he obtained his first degree in theology. After 1 year, Luther was transferred back to Erfurt University. There, he received his second degree in theology. He was appointed to teach theology. At the very young age of 26, Luther occupied an important position in the Roman Catholic Church. While teaching at Erfurt, Luther was sent to Rome as a companion to an older brother of the monastery where he was on a business. Luther visited all the famous shrines in Rome. On his knees, he climbed Scala Santa. You know what Scala Santa is? The steps that Jesus climbed to Pilate's. They have transported that all the way from Jerusalem to Rome. Yes. So you can go to Rome and you can climb the same steps our Lord has climbed. There is any virtue in doing that. Yes. So the stairway is supposed to have been brought to Jerusalem to Rome, and he climbed that on his knees. And Luther was sincere. There is a story that as he was climbing on his knees, the stairway, half the way he heard a voice telling him, "The just shall live by faith." He got up from his knees and walked out. Many people think that Luther's conversion took place right there, but this was not correct. It's only one of those stories that floating around. Luther was saved a year later at Wittenberg in 1512. Moral conditions were really bad in Rome. He was sad and shocked by what he saw in Rome, and he went there. Pope and cardinals were living in luxury and immorality. Many of them were having even concubines. He returned from Rome as a sad person, but still loyal to the Catholic Church. Soon after his return, Luther made Wittenberg his permanent home. He lectured on Bible at the University of Wittenberg. He also preached in the church there. The degree Doctor of Theology was conferred on Luther by the university. From 1512 to 1517, Luther lectured and studied theology. Luther went through much inner conflict. He was deeply religious. He was greatly concerned about the salvation of his soul. According to the popular teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, he came to the conclusion that to save his soul, he needs to flee from this world. So he began to live a very strict, austere life. He lived a strict ascetic. He did whatever good works he could do. He prayed, he fasted, he chastised his body and soul severely. He wasted away his body. Luther was all bone and skin. Even in severest winter cold of Germany, he would sleep on a floor without blanket or any heat, on the concrete floor. He will keep awake all night, would sleep a couple of hours on a mat. He was oppressed by a sense of sinfulness. Oppressed by a sense of sinfulness. He often would suffer depression. How hard he tried to pacify his soul. It became harder and harder. He sang the songs of Bernard of Clairvaux and found some comfort. Once the head of the Augustinian monastery, his name was John Staupitz, Johann von Staupitz. He knew Luther as a young boy, as a young man. He visited that. He was a head of the Augustinian order. So he was visiting the particular monastery where he was. So he saw Luther, only skin and bone. He called Luther here, said, Martin, come here, what's wrong with you? You got tuberculosis or something? He said, no, Father. I ache in my soul. I have no peace. I need to find salvation for my soul. So I'm doing penance. I starve. I chastise my body. So this man, John Staupitz, told Martin, you are an intelligent student of theology. Haven't you read the Bible? Salvation comes by grace, by faith, not by works. You go, take your Greek Bible and start reading Romans. You will find the truth. So Luther got up, he went into the library, he got the Erasmus Greek Bible, he started reading. He didn't go far. Started Romans, came to the 17th word, the just shall live by faith. The just shall live by faith. He read it again and again and again, the just shall live by faith. It is said that he wrote in the margin, the just shall live only by faith. Or by righteousness. Then as he read further, man is justified by grace, by faith. So that's where this salvation came. Martin's salvation is not by works. All your good works and fasting and chastisement of your body and soul won't bring any salvation, John Staupitz told. Yes, he believed it. He rushed to the Wittenberg Library, took the Greek text of Erasmus. He started reading and came to John 1:17. So, he knelt down, he said that he rushed back to his cell after finding this verse, knelt down there, he confessed his sins and he accepted the Lord. And his burden was gone. Luther was a new man. The peace of mind. God has forgiven him his sins. He is reconciled to God. That's the moment Luther was converted. Isn't that amazing? It was the end of the year 1512. He got saved. Luther wrote to Pope about his conversion. He wrote, I often endured an agony so hellish in violence that if those spells had lasted a minute more, I must have died and won't be here. John Staupitz came the right time. Yes. I don't know what Pope understood from it. I don't know even Pope read it. You know, sometimes, these people get their secretaries will open all these letters and look at it, and only worthy ones will be passed over to the table of Pope. So I don't know. But anyway, he wrote. And Tetzel was, coming back to the story, Tetzel was selling indulgences in Wittenberg this time. Luther was a saved person. He knew that indulgences are to cheat people and to make money. But Tetzel was high volume salesman, He had authorization from the Pope. Luther now spoke out against Tetzel's business. He questioned publicly Tetzel. He challenged him to show from the Bible that forgiveness of sin could be purchased for money. Luther saw how his sheep at Wittenberg were sold for money. No, he did not allow. He said, not in Germany, you cannot sell it. The Luther wanted to stop, Tetzel, and Tetzel wanted to stop Luther. Luther had many conflicts with Tetzel, and his team. Luther was powerful in his opposition, for he had the Bible to support him. Tetzel was angry. He reported to Pope telling him that a young monk called Martin is opposing the sale of indulgences. Pope did not take it seriously. He brushed it aside and said, oh, that's a young man. He will go down. Yes, you go ahead and sell it. Ignore him. Luther went into his room, took out pen and paper and wrote down the famous 95 theses against indulgences. Then, around noon on the 31st day of October 1570, Luther went out to the Wittenberg church and nailed it on the front door, main door of the church, the 95 theses, and he rang the bell. People, when you ring the bell, people know something emergency, so they all ran and came. Yes, people came and they have just read it, they were copying it, and they were translating it, sending it all over Europe, and the word has gone out. The act of Luther was not the Reformation. This act of Luther was not the Reformation, but it led to the first serious act that led to the Reformation. Luther at this time was not an obscure man or unknown monk. No. He was 34 years old now. He has experienced and accomplished more than all his contemporaries. He already lived in Magdeburg, Eisenach, Erfurt, gone to Cologne, Leipzig, crossed the Alps to travel to Rome. He has traveled and he met people. He had met a lot of people and lot of different kinds of people. At Rome he met Pope Julius II. He had great scholars. Wherever he taught, he preached. He was acclaimed as the greatest scholar. Luther at this time was a monk, a teacher, a professor, a priest, and a good Roman Catholic. When Luther nailed his 95 theses on the door, he was not doing anything revolutionary. That was the practice that when anybody wanted to say anything to all the people, they will bring it and put it just like today, notice board. Just put it there. So when Luther nailed the 95 theses, we could reasonably understand as to what the great responsibility, it brought upon him. He did not know that he was starting Reformation. Actually, very few people stood with the Luther at this time. People were tired of Rome as they were collecting money. The Prince Frederick of Germany was against Pope because Pope will send letters to him. By next 15th you have to send 50,000 francs. And he was tired. He didn't know what to do. He cannot oppose the Pope because the Pope will ask France or Italy to send their army against Germany. So, he was tired. He didn't want to ask people to contribute more money because he knew, he loved his people. They are poor. They don't have money. So somehow he was looking for a means to oppose Pope. Right then his Luther came up. So people who read the 95 Theses took copies of it and spread it everywhere. The printing press was just invented by Gutenberg, and copies of the 95 Theses was almost the first thing to print in many languages. Elector Frederick, the wise man, the ruler of Saxony, he was a pious Catholic, but as I said, he was tired of Pope. So even he came to, he also read these things and he liked it. He just stated everything. Bible is the basis that there's only one mediator, Jesus Christ. Nothing would be done for the dead people, no penance, no, purgatory and all these things. Every believer is a priest. It is not limited to any one person and this and this and this and then he has listed things. The day 95 Theses was nailed on the door of the Wittenberg church was All Saints' Day. As was customary on that day, the relics in the castle church was solemnly displayed. People came from far and wide to pay respect to the relics. But how have they done? Yeah. Luther saying that relics are meaningless. So as observed earlier, these 95 Theses was translated into many languages. They were printed and were carried with speed to different places. It is said that in 4 weeks after the publication of the 95 Theses, all Europe had it. It was done in such speed. I think Gutenberg worked overtime, day and night to print it. The sale of indulgences was immediately stopped. The Archbishop of Mainz, who was to receive a share of the proceeds of the sale of indulgences by Tetzel, did not like all these events. He sent a copy of the 95 Theses to Pope Leo in Rome. The Pope at first did not take it seriously. He simply asked the general of the Augustinian monks to advise Luther to keep quiet. Tetzel published a counter thesis by the help of a friend. Mussolini, a Dominican monk and an inquisitor in Rome, wrote a book which severely criticized the conclusions of Luther. John Eck, a professor of theology, answered Luther in a pamphlet. Luther soon published his answers in another pamphlet. Luther's friends did not support Luther in this because the language in that pamphlet was very rough. This made Luther to feel bad. In April 1518, the Augustinian monastery held an annual meeting at Heidelberg. Luther found the opposition much stronger than he expected from his own monastery. However, the discussion was frank and friendly. This made Luther happy. When he returned to Wittenberg from Heidelberg, Luther wrote a general answer to all his opponents. This book is known as Resolutions. It was very, cordially written and was addressed to Pope. Luther defended every one of his points. In these theses, Luther did not attack the indulgences per se, but only the abuse of it. Already Wycliffe and Huss attacked the indulgences. However, the Roman Catholic Church saw the attack of Luther more powerful and far-reaching. By pointing out the evils of the indulgences, Luther laid his hand on the most sensitive area of Roman Catholicism, because the power to forgive sins is what brings money. If that power is taken away, who will pay Roman Catholics? So, they understood that. Yes. Somebody asked Erasmus why Pope is so angry. Pope then gave the order that Luther must be arrested and, then they wanted to burn him. So somebody asked Erasmus, why Pope is so angry against this Luther? Erasmus said, Luther touched, the purse of the Pope. He touched the coffers. That's where the money is. Said anybody who touched, the purse of the Pope, they're going to feel it. So Luther basically shook the church. What the 95 Theses did was to loosen the position of the priest and the power to forgive sins. The church was shaken to the foundation. It was. They didn't know what to do. Actually, the whole Europe, part of the Europe went after Luther. The whole Augustinian, there were more than, how many, I don't know, maybe 2,000, 3,000 priests and monks and the nuns, they all came. They closed down the monastery. And people all over Europe, Germany, many places were becoming Protestants. And it was like a dam was broken and the water was flowing down. Who could stop it? And Rome found very difficult. Kings and princes found very difficult. And people were in hysteria. They were against the church because feudalism, the land was owned by the church. And the church will give the land for cultivation to these farmers. They will take a major portion back. So this was opportunity to grab the land back. So they took the axe and marched to the church, broke down every idol, even cut down the priest, declared them free, It was not all Reformation. Yeah, but it was Reformation, but it was not all. It was not all spiritual Reformation. But Luther, Luther just shook the church. I tell you, from Rome to the end of the earth, the foundation of the Roman Catholic Church was really shaken at 0.7 on the Richter scale. Yes, we'll stop there.